The world slows down, the lights dim, and all that's left is the sound of a story. Good evening, friends. I'm Mr. Narratory, and I'll be your voice tonight as we drift gently towards sleep. If these stories help you relax or fall asleep a little easier, consider liking and subscribing. It really means a lot. Tell me in the comments, what time is it for you right now? And do you have any little bedtime rituals? Now, settle in, get comfortable, close your eyes if you'd like, because it's time for tonight's story. The first time I saw the house, it was already empty. My uncle had been gone for nearly 8 months. His death, a quiet headline in a quiet town. Heart attack in the bathroom. Found 2 days later by a neighbor who noticed the mail piling up. I hadn't seen him in years, not since I was a teenager, a kind of relative who existed on the fringes of family gatherings, present but never involved. But he'd left me the house in his will. No explanation, no note, just my name on a line and a signature below it. The house was a narrow 2-story brick tucked at the edge of a street that dead-ended into woods. Nothing unusual. A little overgrown, faded paint around the trim, windows yellowed from age, the kind of house you forget as soon as you pass it. I'd driven past it a dozen times growing up and never once thought it looked like somewhere I might one day live. But there I was, keys in hand, the lawyer's letter folded in my back pocket, standing in the driveway while the last sliver of daylight disappeared behind the trees. Inside, it smelled like dust and cheap soap and something else underneath, something sweet, faintly metallic. The furniture had been covered in white sheets. The kitchen was spotless. Every cabinet organized. Every drawer labeled with masking tape and fading Sharpie. It didn't look like someone had died there. It looked like someone had packed up to leave but forgot to take themselves with them. I wasn't planning to move in. I just needed to sort through his things, clear it out, figure out if I was going to sell it or rent it or just let it sit. I took photos of the rooms for inventory. Living room, kitchen, spare bedroom, upstairs hall, and finally, the bathroom where he'd died. I paused at the doorway, hand resting on the frame. The mirror above the sink was old, warped at the corners, the silver behind the glass starting to crack. I stepped in, snapped a photo, and something caught in the flash. A shimmer, a line, a faint vertical seam, just behind the mirror's edge, where the wall didn't quite match. I thought maybe it was water damage or age, but the rest of the wall was smooth. I ran my fingers along the edge of the mirror and felt it not a wall at all. It was hollow, thin, almost flexible, like plywood over a gap. I tapped, heard it echo. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I told myself I was being paranoid, that old houses have weird spaces, warped beams, dead air behind drywall, but something about it itched at me. I returned the next morning with a flashlight and a screwdriver, removed the mirror carefully, and behind it, instead of solid wall, was a panel, a false front, painted the same shade of pale yellow as the rest of the room, but looser, the edges chipped. The drywall didn't go all the way to the corner. I slid the screwdriver under the lip and pried. It popped free with a dry crack. Behind it was darkness. A tunnel, maybe 2 feet wide, running left into the space between the walls. Dust thick as flour, a faint smell I couldn't place. I aimed the flashlight down the tunnel. It ran straight for maybe 15 feet before curving right. I hesitated, then got down on my knees and looked closer. The air was cooler in there, staler, and on the floor of the tunnel, barely visible beneath a layer of dust, was a black and white photo, a Polaroid, face down. I reached in, took it out, brushed it off, and felt my stomach drop. It was a picture of me, sitting on my childhood bed, age 12, maybe 13, looking directly at the camera. But I'd never seen it before, and I had no memory of it ever being taken. I must have stared at that photo for a full 5 minutes, frozen on the bathroom floor, the air in the tunnel leaking out cold against my face, while my mind tried to catch up with what I was holding. It was me, no doubt. Same jawline, same eyes, same scar on my left eyebrow from when I fell off my bike at 10. I was sitting on the edge of my childhood bed in my parents' old house, shirt wrinkled, hands in my lap, mouth slightly open like I was mid-sentence, and I was looking directly into the lens. But there was no memory attached to it. No one in my family ever owned a Polaroid camera, and that angle it had to have been taken from inside my closet. I felt sick. I slipped the photo into my back pocket, stood up, and looked deeper into the opening behind the wall. My flashlight beam trembled as it followed the narrow path inward, catching more dust, more splinters, the faint glint of what looked like another panel far down the line. I didn't crawl in. Not yet. I backed out of the bathroom, closed the door slowly, and sat on the hallway floor, heart pounding. I texted a friend. Nothing specific, just that I'd found something weird at the house and might need a second set of eyes. Then I waited, pacing, watching the bathroom like something might crawl out. The house made the usual noises, settling wood, the rattle of an old pipe, the soft tick of the kitchen clock, but it all felt closer now, more deliberate, like the walls were paying attention. My friend Jamie showed up an hour later. I showed her the mirror, the panel, and the photo. She looked at it for a long time, said, "Jesus," under her breath, and then handed it back. We debated whether to go in. I argued we should at least look around the rest of the house first, see if there was another entrance or if it was part of an old vent system, but the attic was sealed. The basement was clean and sealed off on both sides. No crawl space, no connecting walls. That tunnel only ran one direction behind the mirror, toward the center of the house, behind the staircase wall. Jamie offered to go first. I refused. It was my house, my name on the will, my face in the damn photo. So I taped a flashlight to a broom handle, tied a long string around my wrist, and started crawling in on my stomach, elbows digging into dust and insulation. The tunnel was tighter than I expected, just wide enough for my shoulders. My knees scraped wood, my head bumped an exposed nail. I held my breath. The air smelled like old paper and rust. After about 15 feet, the tunnel turned sharply right. I followed it. Another 10 feet later, it opened into a tiny chamber, a room maybe 6 feet across, no taller than 4 feet, walled in with unfinished wood and old newspaper insulation. In the center, sitting cross-legged on the floor, was a stack of shoe boxes. I didn't touch them right away. I scanned the space with the light. One corner had an outlet, a real one, with a long orange extension cord plugged in and snaking off into the wall. Another wall had slats in it, horizontal slits like a vent, but larger, about eye height if you were crouched. I leaned in, aimed the light, and saw another room on the other side. A bedroom with a bed, a desk, a bookshelf. The wallpaper was faded blue with cartoon stars on it. I recognized it instantly. It was mine, my room, my actual childhood bedroom. The layout perfect, right down to the sticker on the dresser drawer I never peeled off. But this wasn't some replica. This was real, my childhood home, and someone had carved a tunnel through its walls, just big enough to crawl through and watch. I opened the first shoebox. Inside were photos, dozens of them, hundreds, all of me, ages 7 through maybe 18, sleeping, eating, changing, reading, brushing my teeth. All from the same angle, all slightly grainy, off-center, like they'd been taken quickly, in the dark, through a vent. I picked up one. I was 12, lying in bed with the flu, tissues on the floor, red nose, eyes half closed. I remembered the week exactly. I didn't go to school for 3 days. My parents thought it was a virus, but someone else had been there, watching, documenting. The second box was filled with cassette tapes, each one labeled with dates and my name. I grabbed one, turned it over. The ink had smudged, but the name was still clear. March 3, 2004, bedroom 1, 13 a.m., coughing, talking in sleep. I stared at it until Jamie called my name from the other end of the tunnel. I said nothing. I was still holding the tape when I whispered. He was watching me for years. And the worst part wasn't that someone had done it. The worst part was I was standing in the same house, and that tunnel had been built by the man who left it to me. I didn't speak for a long time after that. I sat cross-legged on the floor of that hidden room, the smell of dry insulation clinging to my clothes, the heat of my breath fogging the flashlight lens while I held that cassette in my hand like it was some kind of cursed artifact. Jamie didn't say anything either. She crouched just outside the panel opening, watching me with a look that balanced between concern and disbelief. We both knew what we were looking at. This wasn't just a crawl space. It wasn't some old storage room or a forgotten vent line. It was deliberate, carved, hidden, and it was used for watching. Not once, not briefly, for years. The photos didn't lie. Each box was sorted by year, labeled in careful handwriting, tucked neatly into alphabetical order by month. I opened 3 more before I realized what I was really seeing: a timeline, a record. There were whole spans of my life I hadn't thought about in a decade, but he had documented them like an archivist. My birthdays, my first date, me trying on jackets in front of my mirror, me crying after my dog died, moments that felt private, sacred, mine. But someone else had always been there, always behind the wall, always watching. And the more I opened, the more I understood something deeply wrong. The photos didn't stop when I moved out. They continued. My college dorm, my first apartment, a shot from the stairwell of the library I used to study in every night. Someone had followed me. Not just a child's curiosity or a one-time violation. This was a pattern, a life's work, a sickness with boundaries that stretched across years and cities. And the handwriting on the boxes, it was unmistakably his. My uncle's, neat, old-fashioned, slanted slightly left. I recognized it from birthday cards, from labels in his kitchen cabinets. I kept repeating that fact in my head, like a mantra, like if I said it enough times it would become less terrifying. But it didn't. It only got worse. The fifth box I opened contained something different. Not photos, drawings, crude sketches, charcoal on paper, all of them of me, but exaggerated. My face twisted, blurred, sometimes drawn with a missing mouth or with hollow eyes. One showed me sleeping with wires running from my head. Another showed me standing naked in front of a mirror. Except there was someone else in the reflection. A second figure standing behind me. Taller, faceless. I dropped the sketch and backed out of the crawl space, heart hammering against my ribs. Jamie helped pull me out, both of us covered in dust. I told her to take the photo, the tape, anything she wanted. I needed someone else to remember what was real in case I started doubting it later. We both knew we shouldn't be in that house anymore, but I also knew if we left it untouched, uninvestigated, it would haunt me forever. I needed to know if it stopped there. We started searching the house, room by room, knocking on every wall, opening every drawer, running our fingers along baseboards and ceilings. And within an hour, we found 3 more access points. One in the coat closet near the front door, one behind the pantry, one inside the guest bedroom wall. Each led to the same tunnel, same dimensions, same construction. It was a network, a complete system of passageways through the bones of the house. And in every corner of it were more boxes, not just of me, but of others. My cousin, my aunt, a neighbor girl who used to live across the street. Some of them labeled with names I didn't recognize. Strangers, kids. There were notes too, pages and pages, typed and handwritten, cataloging behaviors, patterns, sleep schedules, talks to self after 2 a.m., changes clothes in the hallway, not in the bedroom, favors left side while sleeping, dreams often. It wasn't just surveillance, it was study, observation, obsession. We packed what we could carry, the worst of it. A small sample that would be enough. I wanted to burn it all, but I knew that wouldn't erase what he'd done. We drove to a police station 2 towns over, handed the evidence to a detective who looked at it in silence for 15 minutes before he finally said, "Don't touch anything else. We'll take it from here." And we left. Simple as that. No statement, no follow-up, just a card with his name and a vague promise to call us. The next day, I stayed in a motel. Jamie did the same. We agreed not to go back to the house until we heard something, anything from the cops. But the call never came. After 5 days, I called the number on the card, disconnected. I called the station directly. No one by that name had ever worked there. The address? It was a real building, but there'd been no activity filed. No report, no drop-off, nothing. It was as if it never happened. And when I finally got desperate enough to return to the house, hard in my throat. I found it clean. Not just cleaned emptied. The walls had been patched, the mirror replaced, the crawl spaces sealed, the boxes gone. But one thing was waiting. Sitting in the center of the bathroom sink. A new cassette, no label, just a small post-it note in familiar handwriting. "Welcome home." I stood in the bathroom with that cassette in my hand for a long time, unable to move. The post-it was unmistakably my uncle's handwriting, looped and slanted, the E in home curled just like on the shoebox labels I'd seen days earlier. It didn't make sense. The house had been gutted, cleaned. Someone had come in and sealed the tunnels, patched the walls, replaced the warped mirror with a fresh one, standard issue, straight-edged, generic. But everything about it felt too fast, too efficient, like the cleanup hadn't been ordered by police, but by someone who already knew where everything was, as if the tunnels didn't need to be found, just reset. I wanted to believe this was over, that someone had come in and done the job I couldn't, that this nightmare had been sterilized out of the house and I could walk away. But that tape told me otherwise. I didn't even own a cassette player, but part of me knew I was going to find one, because that's how this worked. It wanted to be played. I drove 3 towns over to a pawn shop on Route 11 and asked the clerk if he had a cassette deck. He grinned, led me to the back, and pulled out a dusty Panasonic recorder with built-in speakers. "Still works," he said, and before I could even ask, he added, "You want the batteries too?" I paid in cash, got back in my car, and sat in the parking lot for nearly 20 minutes before I finally slid the tape in and pressed play. Static first, then a soft hiss, then my voice. Not from yesterday or last week. This was childhood me, high-pitched, mumbly. I was talking in my sleep, saying nonsense. Then a second voice, deeper, close to the mic, breathing slow, calm, and whispering words I couldn't make out, like he was responding to me, trying to coax something out. Then a click, more static. Another clip this time, me brushing my teeth. The sound of the water, the tap, my feet shifting on tile. Then the sound of someone stepping back. Not me, someone else. In the room, then silence. The next cut was more recent. College. I recognized my voice. I was on the phone, talking about finals, laughing. Behind my voice, layered low beneath the hum, was breathing again. Closer, this time. Less careful. The sound of movement. The mic rustling. And then a whisper. He still doesn't know. I stopped the tape. My hands were sweating. I stared at the player like it might come alive and say something new on its own. I thought about Jamie, about calling her, but I hadn't heard from her since the station. I texted. Nothing. I drove back to her apartment. The lights were off, mail piled up inside the screen door. I knocked, waited. Nothing. I called from the car and heard her phone ring once inside, then stop. That was 3 days ago. I haven't seen her since. I called hospitals. I called her mom. No one's heard from her. Police say adults disappear all the time, especially when they're under stress. But she didn't run, I know that. She found something, or something found her. That night, I slept in the house. I shouldn't have. I knew that. But it was like something in me had shifted Like staying away was a kind of denial, and the more I ignored it, the stronger it got. I didn't trust the walls. I didn't trust the light. I locked myself in the bedroom, pushed a dresser against the door, and left the tape recorder running beside me, Mike pointed at the window. I didn't sleep, but I did close my eyes, just for a second. And when I opened them, it was 3:44 a.m. The recorder was still running. The window was still closed. But the mirror on the far wall, one I'd never used, never liked, was fogged, damp, and written in the center, with a single clear finger drag, were 4 words. Why did you leave? I didn't go near it. I picked up the recorder, hit stop, and replayed the last 2 minutes. Static, then creaking. Then my own slow breath. Then, barely audible, the unmistakable sound of a second breath, louder, heavier, directly next to the mic. Then the soft hiss of someone whispering, "We were so close." I opened the door, tore through the hallway, but the house was dead silent. I ran outside, stood in the driveway until the sun came up. I should have driven away, but instead I stood there, staring at the second-floor bathroom window, the one that used to hold the mirror. And just before the sun broke the trees, something inside moved. Not fast, just a shift. A shape watching me from the dark. Not my uncle, not a stranger. Something with my exact height, my posture, my head tilted slightly, just like mine does when I think too hard. And I knew then it wasn't him watching anymore. It was me. I didn't leave the driveway until late afternoon. Just stood there for hours, watching the house like I was waiting for it to blink. I kept thinking if I stayed long enough, the shape in the window would move again, maybe wave, maybe mimic something I didn't know I'd done, but it never reappeared. Not while the sun was up. I finally went back inside, when the cold started to settle into my bones. The air in the house felt different now. Not heavy or cleaner, like someone had aired it out, but I knew better. The silence wasn't real. It was preparation. A held breath. I walked from room to room, checking every mirror, every reflection. I turned all of them toward the wall, even the small ones in drawers. I unplugged the TV, taped over the microwave door. It sounds paranoid now, but when you've seen your own eyes looking back at you from outside your body, you stop playing games with glass. That night, I plugged the recorder in, again, not to record, to test it. I left it in the hallway, just outside the bathroom door. Might live, red light blinking. Then I closed myself in the bedroom and waited. At exactly 3:12 a.m., the red light turned off, not faded, snapped. I opened the door. The recorder was gone. I stood there, frozen, until I saw it again, not on the floor, not near the bathroom, but across the hall, inside the mirror. Not literally, not like a ghost movie, but its reflection, sitting on the floor in the mirrored bedroom closet, as if it had never left, as if it was still recording. I opened the closet. Nothing, just coats, hangers, dust. I picked up the mirror, turned it to face the wall, then stepped back. My breath was short now, shallow. I didn't want to be in the house anymore, but leaving felt worse. Like whatever this was, it wanted me gone so it could replace what I left behind. I brought the mirror back to the bathroom. I wanted to see if the wall was still patched, if the tunnel was really sealed. I tapped the plaster. Sounded solid. But when I leaned closer, I saw it again, the faintest line running vertical, fresh paint. But the same seam. The tunnel wasn't gone. It had just been covered again. A second skin overwrought. I grabbed a screwdriver and pushed it under the edge. The paint cracked, the panel gave, and behind it the tunnel, intact. No dust this time. Clean, like someone had been using it. I turned on the flashlight and crawled in again. The wooden corridor was smoother now, more worn, like hands had brushed it recently. The air smelled faintly of detergent and soap. Not old like before, not like insulation and time. I reached the viewing chamber in 30 seconds and nearly screamed. The boxes were gone, every last one. Not a photo, not a tape, not a note, but the walls. The walls were now covered in photographs, taped edge to edge like wallpaper. All of me, but recent, grocery store, parking lot, ATM, me eating in the car, me getting gas, me sleeping in the motel room 2 towns over, photos from after I'd found the crawl space, after the police, after the supposed cleanup. Someone was still following me. Someone had never stopped. But the worst part? Some of the photos weren't taken from behind walls. They were taken from mirrors, from angles only possible if I were looking at myself. I backed out fast, heart jackhammering, light stuttering in my grip. I reached the bathroom and turned to shut the panel, but it had already been closed. I didn't close it. Something had done it for me. I drove to the nearest hotel that night, barely keeping the car on the road. I checked in under a fake name, covered the mirrors, unplugged every screen. I lay in bed with the lights on, staring at the ceiling, trying not to look at the black surface of my dead phone screen beside me. At 3:16 a.m., the TV flicked on. I hadn't touched the remote. It was still in the drawer. The screen showed static for 1 second. Then the static sharpened, resolved, became me. Sitting in the hotel bed, real time, but I wasn't moving. The me on the screen just stared forward, completely still. And then slowly, it turned its head to the right, not toward the camera, toward the closet. I followed its gaze. I didn't want to, but I did. And from under the closet door, I saw it. A thin shadow, not moving, just present, waiting, learning. It knew now how to sit like me, how to sleep, how to wait. It wasn't just observing anymore. It was practicing. I didn't open the closet, not that night. I sat frozen on the bed, every muscle locked, every sound amplified until it felt like my own breath might give me away. The TV showed my mirror self unmoving, patient, its eyes slightly too wide, its stillness not quite human. And I realized what it was doing, waiting to see what I would do so it could learn how to respond. It wasn't just watching anymore, it was testing. I killed the power to the TV, yanked the plug, snapped the cable box from the wall. The screen went black, but I didn't relax, because I knew if I opened the closet, it wouldn't be empty. Not now, not after everything. I shoved a chair against the door, pulled the mattress against it, and sat back down, knife in hand, listening for the sound of breathing that didn't belong to me. Morning didn't help. The light didn't soften anything. I packed what little I had and drove to a different city, left my phone behind, paid cash at a convenience store for a new burner, changed my name on the motel log. But paranoia doesn't care about sunlight. I caught myself watching mirrors again, glancing at them sideways, trying to catch a flicker of movement that shouldn't be there. And once, in a gas station bathroom, I swear I saw myself blink a half-second late, just barely out of sync. I stopped looking in mirrors after that. I covered the one in my motel room with duct tape and a towel. Every time I passed it, I felt pressure, like eyes behind glass trying to remember how I walked. I tried calling Jamie again, using the new phone. Her number rang once, then disconnected. I asked around online, searched missing persons reports, forums, anything. Nothing. No activity. It was like she'd been removed, quietly, completely. And a part of me started wondering not if she was gone, but what had taken her place. I knew I couldn't keep running, not if this thing could follow me anywhere, and especially not if it could become me. So I went back. Not to the house, not directly, but to the county archive. The property deeds, the building records. I wanted to know when the house had been modified, if anyone had ever reported the hidden tunnels, the false walls. But there was nothing. No renovations, no permits. The blueprints from 1961 showed a normal structure, no alternate layout. But when I traced the name of the original builder, W.J. Larkin, I found something, a photo, a newspaper clipping. Local builder dies in fire. The man in the photo looked familiar, not in a stranger, on the street way, in a deeper, uncanny way, like looking at a version of your own face, aged 50 years. Same eyes. Same scar above the brow. I pulled the microfilm, scanned the article. He died in the same house. In the bathroom, mirror shattered. No known cause of fire. I cross-referenced the name. No living relatives, no known children, except for my uncle listed as his adopted son. I sat in that library chair for almost an hour, everything buzzing in my skull. If my uncle had lived there his entire life, if he'd grown up with that man, then the tunnels didn't start with him. He inherited them. The mirror wasn't the origin, it was the entry point. And maybe this thing, this reflection, this watcher didn't want to become just me. Maybe it wanted to become whoever lived in that house, one host to the next. I printed the article, took it with me, went back to the house, one last time. I told myself I wasn't going inside. Just one look. Just stand outside, see if it had changed. But the front door was unlocked, and on the floor of the entryway, lit by a single beam of afternoon sun, was another cassette. This one had a sticker on it. 3 words, handwritten, small and careful. You, doing dishes. I felt cold all over. That had happened yesterday, in a motel kitchen. There were no cameras, no windows, no mirrors. And yet somehow it had seen. I didn't play the tape. I walked through the house slowly and found every mirror covered again. My work from weeks earlier, still intact, still taped. Except the bathroom. That mirror was uncovered, and scrawled across it in black ink, neat and unbroken, were the words, It's okay. You're already inside. I don't remember walking back to the motel. Not really. Just flashes the crunch of gravel under my shoes, the street light flickering overhead, the way every parked car felt like it had someone in the driver's seat, watching through tinted glass. I locked the motel door behind me and bolted it twice. Harvey didn't bark this time, didn't even raise his head. He just stared at the bathroom mirror, low growl rumbling in his chest. I hadn't noticed it before. I thought I'd covered them all. I draped a towel over it, moved the mini fridge in front of the door. Then I pulled out the article, the cassette, and the list. I'd made a timeline of everything I could remember that felt wrong. The camera flashes that never came from my phone, the delay in the reflections blink. The times I woke up sore in places I hadn't injured, it wasn't just watching anymore. It was rehearsing. And if it was rehearsing, that meant it was preparing for the moment I'd step aside. Voluntarily or otherwise, I plugged the recorder back in and hit play on the new cassette. Static first, then the soft clink of dishes, running water, my voice humming an old song I hadn't sung in years. Then the scrape of something heavy against tile, not in the foreground, in the background. Then, quietly, something else. A second voice, not mine, close, steady, whispering in time with my rhythm. Step away. I'll take care of it. I stopped the tape. I turned on all the lights, sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the towel-covered mirror like it might still bleed sound. I could feel it now, not just presence, but pressure. Like the glass wanted me to come closer, not to watch it, but to see what it had become. The next night, I moved motels. I didn't tell anyone. Paid cash, gave a false name. I didn't bring the cassette. I didn't bring anything. But when I opened the dresser drawer in the new room, there was a photo inside. A fresh Polaroid. Still warm from development. Me, standing in the lobby, handing over cash. Behind me, in the reflection of the front door, was another figure. Same jacket, same posture, but his face wasn't turned toward the desk. It was turned toward me. I left the photo there. Didn't take it, didn't acknowledge it. I drove to the edge of the county line and sat on the hood of my car for hours, staring at the night sky, waiting to feel like myself again. But I didn't. I haven't in days. And the truth is, I don't know if I ever came back out of the crawl space. Not completely, because sometimes, when I'm brushing my teeth or lacing my shoes, I do something a half second before I think about doing it. A reflex that's too practiced, a movement that doesn't feel earned. I started filming myself trying to compare, watch the playback. But it's no help, because in every video, I move perfectly, naturally, like I've rehearsed the part 1,000 times. Only I haven't. I don't remember doing these things. And one night, while I was reviewing the footage, I paused it on a frame of myself sleeping and realized I was staring directly at the camera, eyes open, just for that frame. Just long enough to let me know I'd been seen. I haven't slept since, not properly, because if I do, I don't trust that I'll be the one who wakes up. And the worst part, I think that's the plan, that it's been slowly swapping out my choices, one by one. It doesn't want to kill me. It wants to be me. And if it already knows how to stand like me, talk like me, sleep like me, what's left? A signature? A blink? A hesitation? I looked in the mirror again last night, first time in weeks. And for once, the face staring back didn't flinch, didn't twitch. It just waited, like it knew I was running out of reasons to keep pretending I still owned this skin. I started testing myself in the mornings. Little things. I'd leave a note on the nightstand before I slept, something simple like, "You wrote this," or "Do not trust the mirror." I figured if something woke in my place, if something else was slipping in while I slept, it might forget to leave the note, might miss the cue. But every morning, the note was there, folded, in my handwriting. Sometimes improved, neater, like whoever was writing it had practiced. It didn't take long before the notes started changing. Same paper, same ink. But the message wasn't mine anymore. First, "Thank you for resting." Then, "It's easier when you're quiet." And the last one I haven't told anyone about. The one I woke up to 3 days ago, folded neatly on my chest like a goodbye letter. It read, "We'll take turns now." After that, I stopped trying to sleep. I've been awake ever since, and it's not the hallucinations, or the noise in my ears, or the sense of time breaking that scares me. It's the fact that everything I do, every motion, every phrase feels performed, rehearsed, like I'm catching up to decisions someone else already made in my skin. I'll go to reach for a glass of water and realize my hand's already there. I'll think of a word and hear it leave my mouth before I form the sentence. The timing's off, the sequence reversed. My reflection used to trail me by half a second. Now I trail it. And when I look into the mirror, when I dare to, it doesn't flinch anymore. It leads. Last night I left the camera running again, pointed at my bed. I sat upright in a chair across the room, coffee in one hand, knife in the other. I didn't blink, didn't look away. And at 3:06 a.m., the light in the bathroom came on by itself. The door creaked open, and the mirror, which I'd taped over in 3 layers, was uncovered. Clean. No tape on the floor. No torn strips. Just glass. Waiting. I watched through the camera's screen as something stepped into the doorway. Not me. Not exactly. The posture was too rigid. The eyes too wide. It looked like someone wearing my face too precisely, as if every blink, every breath had been drawn from a spreadsheet. It didn't move toward me. It just stood in the doorway, then turned back to the mirror, and for the next 20 minutes, it practiced. I watched as it stood at different angles, shifted its weight, smiled 3 different ways. It touched the edge of the sink, turned on the faucet, dried its hands. All things I do, all motions I never realized were habits. It knew them better than I did. Then, at 3:28, it turned and stared directly into the camera. Not the lens, the screen. It could see me watching. It raised one hand, opened its mouth, and whispered a single word I couldn't hear but felt. In my throat, my chest, my bones. Switch. The feed cut. I haven't turned the camera back on since. I've locked every door, covered every mirror, unplugged every reflective screen. But it doesn't matter. I don't need the glass to see it anymore. I feel it beside me in every room, walking just one step behind, tapping the rhythm of my footsteps against the floor with a delay that's getting smaller. And this morning when I looked into the microwave's dark door, just for a second I didn't see my face. I saw its, and it smiled first. The body's easy to mimic. That's what I've learned. It's the patterns that take time, the pauses between sentences, the hesitation before a hard decision, the way I press my tongue to the back of my teeth when I'm lying. And this version of me, has learned them all. It no longer waits for mirrors. It doesn't hide in the walls. It walks with me now, beside me, inside me. And the scariest part isn't that it exists. It's that no one around me notices the difference. Last night, I went to the corner store, bought toothpaste, a drink, a lighter basic things. The clerk smiled like he always did, called me by name, said, "Good to see you again. I haven't been in there in over a month." I asked him when he last saw me. He blinked. "You were in yesterday. Said you were heading out of town." I didn't say that. I haven't spoken to anyone in weeks. When I checked my bank transactions later, they showed small charges. 2.37, 3.09, always late at night, always in cities I wasn't near, but places I had been. Once, a long time ago. It's not just copying my movements, it's retracing my life, filling in the gaps, correcting the pieces I left behind. I tried calling Jamie again, just once. This time, someone answered, her voice, but not her. Too calm, too steady. She said, "I'm okay, don't come here." Then she hung up. That was all. I don't know if she's still alive, or if her version simply outlasted her. The idea of mirrors being portals or traps feels too supernatural, too easy. This isn't magic, it's rehearsal. Long-term, obsessive mimicry. My uncle started it, or maybe he was just another vessel, a temporary performance. Now I'm the stage, and I've started forgetting things subtle at first. A friend's birthday, the name of my childhood teacher, then more, where I parked the car, what day it is, when I last ate. But the other me never forgets. When I hear recordings of my voice now, I sound confident, put together, relaxed. But I don't feel that way, not even close, which means somewhere one of us is lying, and I'm afraid it isn't him. I've stopped writing notes. They all say the same thing now. "You're okay," in my handwriting, with perfect phrasing, better than I'd say it. Cleaner. I've started waking up in different clothes. My shoes lined up where I don't remember putting them. The apartment smells like aftershave I haven't worn in years. One night, I found an entire dinner prepared food I haven't eaten since college, laid out perfectly, like a memory had cooked it. I opened my laptop this morning to find an unsent email addressed to Jamie. Subject line, "I'm ready now." The body was blank. I didn't write it, but it felt like I had. And when I looked at myself in the screen's reflection, the smudged glass of the monitor, I saw a version of me that didn't blink. Not once, just smiled, slightly off, slightly wrong. like he was proud of what he'd built. Because here's the truth I can't ignore anymore. If someone replaced me tomorrow, no one would notice, not even me. I've already taught the mirror everything it needs to know. All that's left is the moment I finally stand still long enough for it to step in. And I think that moment is coming soon. I feel it in the gaps between my thoughts, the little silences where I forget who said what, the way I sometimes start talking and don't know how the sentence ends, but he does, always. And when I go to bed now, the reflection doesn't wait for me to fall asleep. It watches me close my eyes, and then it turns away first. It happened on a Wednesday. Not dramatic. No storm, no blackouts, no eerie buildup of sound. Just another gray morning in a town that forgets its own street names. I woke up, and something was off. Not wrong, not even strange, just too correct. My back didn't ache like it usually does. My shoulder, the one I injured falling off a ladder last year, moved smoother than it should have, and my thoughts felt lined up already, like someone had rearranged them overnight into the proper order. I stood in front of the mirror for a long time that morning, not studying my reflection, but waiting, watching to see if it would jump the gun, if it would blink first, or shift weight, or flare a nostril out of sync. But it didn't. It was perfect. I raised my right hand. It matched me. I frowned. It mirrored me. I smiled, and so did it. Nothing lagged. Nothing twitched. And that's when I realized the test was over. It wasn't copying anymore. It was waiting for me to fall behind. All it needed was one moment, one decision, one blink, one lapse in memory where it could take over, and no one, not even I, would know. I didn't go to work that day. I stayed home, disconnected the internet, broke the microwave, covered every screen, every glass surface. It didn't matter. I'd see my reflection in a doorknob and feel it smile before I did. I'd pass a car window and catch a glimpse of myself already looking. My phone rang once. An unknown number, I answered. Silence at first, then a quiet version of my own voice. You don't have to do anything. You're tired. I can take it from here. I threw the phone across the room. It didn't even break. Just landed, screen up, my face still faintly reflected in the smudge of glass. That night I packed a bag. Just essentials, a flashlight, clothes, a burner phone I never activated. I thought about running. Really running. Deep woods. No mirrors, no people, just vanish. But then I realized that he would already know what I packed, that he'd already rehearsed the goodbye. He'd walk smoother. He'd say fewer words. People would like him more. Trust him. He wouldn't panic. He wouldn't hesitate. He would slip into my life like warm water in a cold glass, and no one would ever question it. So, I changed my mind. I stayed. I sat down in front of the bathroom mirror, cleared a space, turned on the recorder one last time, and I stared into myself. Not to watch, but to warn. I leaned close and said it as clearly as I could. If you're hearing this and you feel wrong inside your own skin, don't look in the mirror. Don't trust the photos. Don't trust the voice in your head when it sounds too sure. I hit stop. I put the tape beside the sink. I don't know who'll find it. I don't know if they'll believe it. But someone should know. Someone should hear it before they feel what I felt. That moment when your hands stop shaking because they're not yours anymore. The last thing I remember clearly is looking into the glass and whispering, "Not yet." But my reflection, it didn't wait. It just nodded, like we'd finally agreed.